really don't like to acknowledge that on the left. And that's when Al Green got up there and started harassing Trump. This was debated, interestingly, the other day when Stephen A. Smith went on The View. And Joy Behar, she too pushed back. And even on this morning's The Daily, Maggie Haberman was pushing back on just how historic the victory. They really don't want to say historic. They don't want to say mandate. They don't want to say any of the things that Trump says. And
it started like any typical episode of Asterisk, The View Asterisk hosts smiling over their coffee, tossing around predictable takes in sync. Just another round of polished groupthink. Then he walked in. No fake smile, no rehearsed lines, just a calm, commanding presence that instantly changed the energy in the room. You could feel the tension rise. The hosts glanced at each other. The audience shifted, and the vibe turned serious. Subtle signs gave it away. Nervous posture shifts, tighter grips on mugs. This wasn't going to be a friendly chat. He skipped the small talk completely. No thanks for having me. No warm up, just straight into the real stuff. While most guests play it safe, trying to blend in with the tone of the show, he didn't bother. The topic, Trump's unexpected comeback win. But what hit hardest wasn't just the subject, it was his delivery. He called it historic. A flat-out rejection of the political elite. A wake-up call for millions of people who felt ignored. And when one of the hosts tried to challenge him, he stayed cool. No yelling, no stumbling, just calm. Sharp replies that dismantled their arguments one by one. He wasn't there to perform. He was there to tell the truth, blunt, unapologetic, and impossible to ignore.
All those women in the panel were by literally sitting next to a black man that's not just gonna nod on like a bobblehead and go along with all their Democrat talking points. So look, the Democrats have a black male problem, right? Everybody knows that. And Stephen A. Smith has been very savvy in kind of like coming from the sports commentator world. He's extremely successful, and then kind of putting himself into the space where I'm gonna say I am not for Trump, but I am going to sit here and I'm going to tell you the truth about everything that is going on right now. It's very savvy, because and this is where I'll throw the black card down on the table. If you are a black man, Democrats have absolutely...
This wasn't just another guest showing up to smile, nod, and play along. This was a full-blown disruption. He shattered the cozy echo chamber that mainstream media often hides in, and with every blunt truth he dropped, the tension in the room thickened. The host's unease grew as he laid out what no one wanted to say out loud. This election wasn't just about rural white voters. It was black voters, Latino voters, young voters, people from every walk of life who flipped the map. Nearly 90% of counties went red. The country didn't lean right, it sprinted there. And while the media tried to downplay it, acting like it was just a close call, he stayed grounded in facts. The panel scrambled, some tried to pivot, others fired off emotional rebuttals, but he stayed focused, cutting through the noise. Then came the gut punch. I'm not a Trump fan, but I am a fan of the truth. That line hit like a sledgehammer, because no matter how uncomfortable it made people, he was right. Millions of voters, especially from groups the Democrats once relied on, walked away. And he wasn't there to soften the blow. He called it what it was, a political earthquake. So huge that media elites didn't even want to acknowledge it.
I'm a supporter of truth and the facts, and here's the facts. The man won every swing state. He increased in terms of his voter turnout in his favor from the standpoint of blacks, Latinos, and young voters. He increased his numbers in that regard from 2020. 89% of the counties
right there live on national TV. He did what most people wouldn't even dare. He spoke the unfiltered truth that millions have been holding inside. And he said it straight to the faces of people who clearly didn't want to hear it. The mood in the room flipped instantly from polished TV pleasantries to sharp, uncomfortable silence. No more rehearsed smiles or safe talking points. Then he dropped the line that stopped everything. Asterisk, the Democratic Party has nothing to offer black men. Not less, not a little, nothing. Asterisk, it wasn't said for shock value, it was said with the weight of lived experience. The host froze. The audience tensed, and for a second, it felt like the whole show hit pause. This wasn't performative, it was real, raw, and impossible to spin away. He spoke not as a pundit, but as someone who's watched the same cycle repeat for decades. Promises made, then broken. Support expected, but never earned. He didn't sugarcoat it, didn't hedge it, he said it plain. The party that once stood for workers, for the everyday people, has drifted so far from its roots that black men now feel overlooked, taken for granted, and politically homeless. Asterisk, we're tired. Asterisk, he said. Asterisk, of being told to shut up and fall in line. Asterisk, and in that moment, The silence in the studio said everything.
Thoughts on the election as it just went down.
I was surprised at how lopsided it was. I was not surprised by the outcome. I saw the outcome coming from a mile away. You have to take into account, listen, we respect our president, Joe Biden, but here's the reality. He got into office. He promised to be a transitional president, to be a stopgap, to pave the way for somebody else to come on board. Into the midterms, it was supposed to be a red wave. It did not happen.
Trump's only been in office for 6 weeks. Seems like 6 years, doesn't it? And he's been going around with his cronies touting his so-called landslide and blowout win. But he won the popular vote by 1.5%, one of the smallest ever, and he won the general election by less than 50%. So what kind of mandate is this really?
Well, it is a mandate, and I'm going to explain.
Walked into The View like no one else. No smile, no script, just pure presence, and from the second he sat down, the entire vibe shifted. The hosts, usually confident in their echo chamber, suddenly looked uneasy. This wasn't just another guest playing nice, this was a disruption. He came with blunt honesty. No fluff, no safe takes. The topic on the surface was Trump's shocking comeback, but the real shakeup came from how he framed it, not just a rural white revolt, but a historic rejection of the political elite by Black, Latino, and young voters too. Nearly 90% of counties turned red, yet the media kept calling it close, refusing to admit what it was, a political earthquake. When the hosts tried to challenge him, he calmly dismantled their points with facts and clarity. Then he dropped the line that froze the room. The Democratic Party has nothing to offer Black men. Nothing. No one moved. No smiles. Just silence. And he wasn't saying it to go viral, he was saying it from experience. He pulled the Black card. But not how people expect. He said Black men are invisible unless they follow the script. He backed it up with data. Trump didn't just win, he expanded. More Black voters, more Latino voters, more young voters. When someone tried to downplay it by pointing to the popular vote, he cut through the spin. This wasn't about decimal points, it was about momentum, about people walking away from the status quo. Then he said the quiet part out loud. This wasn't a vote for Trump, it was a vote against Democrats. And in that moment, surrounded by hosts who didn't know how to respond, he gave voice to what millions have been feeling but are rarely allowed to say, and the silence around that table said it all.
Things later on. That's always been his MO, and that's what we've seen.
Yeah, well, I want to go back to what you said about Black men being very comfortable with matriarchy, and I agree with that because, you know, Black households are often led by a grandmother, Black grandmother or Black mother. However, 55% of Latino men voted for Trump. Why do you think that happened?
Well, I think that economically, they were looking at things. First of all, you've got, in this country, you've got Cubans, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Guatemalans, Venezuelans, Colombians, et cetera, and if you talk to the Hispanic community, depending on who you're talking to, they think differently. The Cubans think differently than the Dominicans. The Dominicans think different than Colombians.
As the host scrambled to twist numbers and soften the blow, he stayed composed, laying it all out with clarity and conviction. The media's downplaying of the results wasn't an oversight, it was deliberate. If they told the truth, he said, they'd have to admit they missed the shift completely. And none of y'all want to take that hit. Then, with a move no one saw coming, he flipped the energy in the room by bringing up a topic rarely discussed on shows like this. Matriarchy in Black communities. There was no bitterness in his tone. Just raw truth. Black men are raised by powerful women, mothers, grandmothers, aunties. That dynamic has shaped how generations of Black men view leadership, identity, and strength. From there, he drew a bold connection. Many Black and Latino men are gravitating toward leaders who embody authority, confidence, and toughness, even when flawed, because that's the energy they've grown up around, and that's what feels familiar, even authentic. One host tried to pivot the conversation, tossing out that 55% of Latino men voted for Trump, clearly expecting him to stumble. But he didn't. Her tone mixed confusion with disbelief, unable to grasp why so many Latino men lean conservative. But he broke it down without missing a beat. Economics, that was the answer. Not identity, not optics. Results, jobs, taxes, inflation, gas prices, rent, groceries, day-to-day stability. And he said it plainly, Latinos aren't a monolith. Cubans, Mexicans, Dominicans, Colombians, Venezuelans, they all vote based on different life experiences and priorities. What they share is a focus on tangible outcomes, not symbolic gestures. That's what's driving the shift, and no spin or panel chatter could obscure that anymore.
Way back in 2016, before Trump ran for president, you were friendly with him because he's really into sports. And you said that the fact that he's a sports guy, which I didn't realize because I don't think of sports when I look at him, but yeah, I'm not even being snarky. I just don't think of a sports
What
guy.
about riding around
You
in a
on
golf
the-
court? Doesn't that count?
Right. But you, on the other hand, I get, you said that being a sports guy helped him.
Well,
What did you mean by that?
Because what happened is that a lot of African Americans, Latinos, and others, we associated ourselves with him because he would host fights at Trump casinos. He would show up at basketball.
But then he dropped the line that shut the whole room down. It's the economy. And it hit like a punch to the gut. Because wow, politicians argue over hashtags and pronouns on TV. Real people are just trying to keep the lights on, put gas in the tank, and pay rent on time. He made it clear voters weren't chasing polished speeches or moral perfection. They were desperate for someone who'd actually fight for their survival. That moment drew a direct line between Liv's struggles and the choices made at the ballot box. The panel was silent, nothing to fire back. But then came the shocker. One host, trying to break the tension, threw out a soft comment about Trump's past ties to sports, probably hoping to pivot the conversation, but it backfired. He leaned in with laser focus and dropped what they didn't expect. Way before politics, Trump was already a familiar face in Black and Latino communities, not as a leader, but as a presence. At boxing matches, courtside seats, high-profile events, he wasn't just in the background. He was front and center, shaking hands, taking pictures, hosting fights at his own casinos. People noticed, and in those moments, he wasn't Trump the politician, he was Trump the showman.
It's not about what it says about the Republican Party. It's about what it says about the Democratic Party.
Why?
Because in the end, if you think about him being impeached twice, 34 felony counts or 34 felony convictions, and they still elected him president, it's not about him winning. It was an indictment against the Democratic Party and what the Democratic Party was offering to American citizens. We might sit up there and talk about, hey, you should be a party for the working class, which the Democratic Party was once known for. They're not known for that right now. Why? Because their message was catering towards others and towards other issues, and they forgot about the people that brought them there, that elevated the Democratic Party to what it was.